so dumb.
How long have you known me?
A long time now.
It is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned in to Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. This is ChipChat. Welcome to ChipChat, everybody. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
You just told him, buddy.
Wow.
What is up? What's up? What's down?
I don't know if the mic caught the very end of that last little conversation before the show started.
We should do that more. We should actually have like a beginning that's just
It's
like
not
the first
beginning.
Yeah, like the first, like, I don't know, 3 minutes of whatever the hell we're talking about, and then go into the show.
Like, oh, wait, we got to do a show.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But I do want to medal if I accurately predicted the way democracy ends in the United States.
Okay.
I mean, predicting the end of democracy is a little too easy, right? But specifically the way that it's going to happen, I've got a lot of it right so far. So I
love the thing to want to be right about.
Listen.
I love the thing that you want to be right about.
I always want to be right.
Oh, God, no. Sometimes it's not worth it.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not worth it. Right now, it's not worth it. I hope you're incredibly wrong.
Well, me too. But I was wrong about the military parade, quote unquote, being
that one. That one was a nothing burger.
I predicted that was going to be how the military was going to occupy the district. As it turns out, there's a slightly different path.
There's easier ways to do that.
Yeah, well, wasn't that far off.
Easier ways, as we've seen. Yay, not being a state.
Yeah. So, welcome to a special edition of Chip Chat. This week, our episode is officially. We are now officially Resistance Radio. I don't know what else to call it. Be ready for this to become that. Speaking of radio, so that people kind of maybe think about this, and I don't know how the timelines on this are a little bit foggy, but what we're seeing now is the very standard fascist playbook where you basically point to an emergency that maybe doesn't exist and use that as a pretext to deploy the military and civilian situation, which is specifically designed to sort of inflame the situation and hope that somebody kind of reacts or overreacts, and that thus you can, crack down harder and whatnot. But the next steps in the fascist playbook are often things like the internet or other important means of communication that could be used to organize any kind of resistance or even just mutual aid or whatever are disrupted. This show comes to you via the internet. I'm sure there are other important things that happen on the internet, but, mostly this show. And I think that could change in a relatively quick fashion. I'm not totally sure when, but I do think there is a way that the government, if they want to, can essentially disrupt the internet. I'm not sure they can knock it out entirely, but I think they can disrupt it. That being said,
I think the commercial means of the internet might be tricky to do that. I think they can target specific people, but
yeah, I think they can.
There's not going to be. It's not turning it off isn't an option in this country. Like I know they've done it in other places, but the way commerce moves, you can't really do that. And I think that's still. No one's blowing it up where you can't get your Amazon packages. And there would be an angry CEO that would be at the White House calling to be like, hey, as we've seen another CEO, Dana White, who has a huge Paramount deal, like they will go and ask because there are still like mutual, like there's a financial implication that the individual in the White House will always respond to for the people who have already responded to him. Like
I think if
the
we're
quid
at
pro
the
quo is
point,
there.
yeah, that's possible.
The internet's not going. I don't think the internet's going out personally. It's not like Egypt. Like no, we're not like they just.
It might not be quite that much, but it could very quickly become substantially less reliable and less safe to communicate on. All of that is to say that the thing that has historically protected populations against full-on, fascist overrun, or the thing that has often been the saving protection or response to occupation or whatever you want to call it, is radio. And, historically speaking, the radio as a means of communication is the sort of most resistance thing you can think of, guerrilla radio, as it were, or pirate radio, because it's very difficult to stop. You can't really.
And not what we're doing. I don't think you're not talking about what we're doing. I think you're talking
No. I'm talking about like
FM,
the way that,
AM signals.
Yes, that's where I'm going with this. So in addition to being good at listening to us, I would recommend that people get good at listening to the regular radio. If you have abandoned terrestrial radio in like a very real sense, like if you stream NPR, that's not radio. You need to have a radio. You probably need to have several of them, and you probably need to have ones that are, ways that you can charge them, battery, solar, whatever, that you can get to them, for periods of time. It would also probably be a good idea to have some communication radios, in case the cell phone networks are a little disrupted, and just,
I think this is fear mongering. If we're saying the cell phone networks are going to go down, I think that is a little.
I'm not saying necessarily go down,
but now we're telling people to go into, like, I don't know. I feel like we're walking the line of telling people to go into their bunkers and go ahead and have rations and whatnot. I don't know if we're there yet.
We're maybe not there yet, but it isn't a bad idea to be ready. And I think
look up those stocks, guys.
Yeah, look. Radio matters in a really profound way, and I'm always right about all these things on this show, and Tez always tells me I'm wrong, and then I get to say, like, see, I told you so, democracy is falling. But it is a thing, okay? So just get a radio, get a real radio, one that receives signals over the air.
I'm not arguing. I think that's not a bad thing to have in general, whether it's natural disasters or other things.
Exactly. Weather band radio
is a larger reason to have it. I don't want to fear, I don't want to fear monger on people.
Get a weather band radio, get something maybe like a CB radio that you can communicate with over some reasonable distance, not a tremendous distance. Maybe look into ham radio or, anything like that. I'm not saying that you need it. I'm saying it's not a bad idea to have it. And because it could matter, right? Imagine a situation, we are not near there yet, but imagine a situation where the communication networks are disrupted and you need to be able to figure out where to go to get food, or where to go to get water, or where to go to organize, or something like that.
You got to think about the reason. We got to think about the reasons for that, because cell phone disruption has happened before. It happened through 9/11. Depending on, like, there's other events that have happened where the cell phone go down, and people figure it out. I think where I get weary about this is the reason for this happening, because you're saying the reason is that someone has turned off. Like,
it's not necessarily just that they could turn it off. Like, we are very dependent on a set of critical infrastructure that only works because people keep it working. And if the people have a reason not to be going to work, I mean, we saw this a little bit in COVID, where like the essential workers,
right.
If the line workers aren't there to keep the electricity on, right, the cell phones aren't going to work. Or if the people who run the pumping stations for the municipal water supplies aren't there for some reason, or they can't get to work, or there's some disruption, those things can become disrupted. So whether it's a disaster or anything else, I'm just saying that all of us expect the electricity to be there when we plug something in. We expect the phone call to go through. You know, what was the old James Earl Jones? Like, the call doesn't mean anything unless the call goes through, right?
God,
like,
was the Bell Atlantic?
Bell Atlantic, yeah.
So
that stuff is kind of like important. So I'm just like decentralized networks, decentralized communications, the ability to talk across distances, not necessarily huge distances, but some distances, that can get disrupted. And a lot of people, you know, I'm old enough to remember riding my bike to each of my friends' house to like see who was available to come outside that day.
Yes.
You know, because maybe I couldn't call them.
Yeah, exactly.
But that ability is, if you want to call it a counter.
It is. It's shut off for many people in this country. That doesn't happen.
It doesn't even occur to them that you could just go over to the house and ask, right? So just like, you know, kind of keep that in the back. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just you know.
I think you've taken 7 minutes to scare everybody.
Don't listen to me.
Don't listen to you, but you're always right.
All right. But in any case, the federal troops are in our city again. This time, though,
we didn't want to talk about this. That's why we're friggin' filibustering, because we don't want to talk about this.
I don't want to talk about
Obviously,
it.
no.
Thank you, Brian. Just like the last time, nobody's quite sure what they're doing here. Let's see. RFK's bull semen has been shooting at the CDC. Yeah, that's also pretty scary. Taco tariffs. If you played the dip, or did you bake in the taco? You know, or did you make your taco trades this week? We'll see.
China got another one.
Extra hot sauce. Yeah, that's going to be on the list.
China got another one.
And then Trump and Putin are going to have some sort of a meeting. And
in old Russia.
In what used to be Russia.
Sorry.
And we're back to pay for play. And this time it's not about access to DJs.
No.
It's like you're not allowed to have a company unless you pay tribute.
Crazy. Where are the libertarians?
Where's the Milton Friedman, Adam Smith Republicans? I don't know. I don't know.
That is crazy. But I do get the CEOs, and I know people are asking them to do more, and you would think, because they have fuck you money, to be like, all right, well, fuck you.
They don't have you money when it comes to the federal government.
Exactly. And there's where, and
on the dashboard.
And it's clear that they're like, oh, we're going to try to ride this out too. Y'all can say what you want. Maybe this will blow over in 4 years and there'll be something different. But right now, I mean, my man Tim Cook, he showed up with the gold.
Gave him a little gold.
Said it was created by the Marines. They're playing notes, and I mean, if we look at, and this people will hate this, but like if you look at the CEO's responsibility, what is the responsibility to the shareholders? What is it? Fiduciary responsibility. That's what it is, and it seems they're like, we're gonna figure that out.
Yeah, and to some extent, Muriel Bowser is sort of your. Like test case, you're maybe the best at this of anybody right now, of like ride the wave, you know, don't try to swim against the current, just ride it out.
And incredibly, because like that frustrates me. But I also I understand the other side, but it does frustrate me because, you know, people want to see their elected officials fight. And so the follow-up would be, this is a form of fighting. And again, maybe I don't know. I feel like I can see from the 30,000 foot level, if I was in the same position, it'd be really crazy, because it is the arm of the federal government that can crush you.
It is a military occupation in her city. We're gonna have to talk about when we get to that. Let's talk about that.
It's the law.
It is right.
It's the law. Like for 30 days, and until they go to. Anyways, we'll get to that.
We're gonna get to that, but yeah, it's gonna be. So it's going to be fun, you know? And we have to have a short show because Tez needs to go somewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to Las Vegas.
Right.
Sure. I'm the break. I don't even feel comfortable, like, because we're talking all of this. I got this damn working families part. I'm full of shit too because I'm supporting the fuckery that's going on around here too.
First of all, you're going to be paying for it because you're the idiot that's going to Las Vegas in August.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've ever been in Vegas in the summertime.
Yeah, it's bad. It is. I was there.
Bad.
It's very bad.
You want to know what you need? Chapstick. And you don't think
because it's dry. Because the dry heat. You're right. You're so completely right on that.
We are very used to hot, and we don't. I don't know anybody
in hot. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anybody in DC that needs chapstick during the summer months, right? Because it's not.
But I get it. It's
not dry.
It's almost the same thing. Like I still go and apply your lotion, but it's so hot that at the end of the day, you shouldn't be ashy.
It's not really an issue,
you
right?
Shouldn't be an ashy at all.
I went to Vegas in June once.
Me too. I went in June.
Stepped off the plane and my lips were on fire. I was like, I don't care what we do before we get anywhere. We need to stop at a 7 or CVS or something. I need chapstick because I was done.
The dry heat is completely different. It's like a desert heat. I walked to the bank one day out there in June, and I was like, oh, I get it. There is no humidity, but it is hot.
Yeah, right. So that's why we left and went to Brooklyn. Like this is not.
No, it's gonna be. But it's fine.
Desert hot is hot. So
the casinos are AC. I am playing a round of golf as soon as I get off the plane, though. Which is it's gonna be.
Who's having a water crisis? Anyway,
that's what I'm saying. Like, no one listen to me. I am the problem. I'm the problem. I am it. But yeah,
Okay. So, do you have a word?
Do I have a word? Yeah, I have a word.
Okay, I've got a word. So sit back, grab some.
Thanks.
It's occupation time. You're listening to the best show, the only show.
There it is.
On Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweet.
It worked. ChipChat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping up?
All right, so it's time to do some headlines. Quick actual headline before we do the headlines. Turns out the guy who threw the sandwich at the cops was a DOJ employee and got fired immediately. So he is the hero. You ready for it? He's not the hero we asked for. He's the hero we needed.
Oh my god!
That's gyro for all of you.
That's
who
good.
Don't know
that's
how to
really
say
good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Okay. And I do like that has now become the emblem of resistance. Is like bro in a pink shirt.
Yeah, I heard he's got a new job coming up for the new season. You know what he's doing?
Pitching for the Nats?
No. School's about to start. He's gonna be a substitute.
I like how you sandwich that one in there between my bad jokes. Oh,
that's bad.
We can't wait. There's going to be so much more with Sandwich Man.
Oh my god, is that going to be the resistance people just throw?
Look, it's a good symbol.
Yeah, it is. It's a good symbol. It's a crazy like
the
full extent of the law is going to come at you before.
That's APO, buddy.
They're gonna make an example out of that guy too, which I think they're gonna really. It's gonna be bad. We're gonna know the Sandwich Man might be in freaking alligator Alcatraz for God's sakes. Like I'm very worried about. I get it, but I'm so worried about what they're gonna do to him. But he is also white, so I don't know.
He's a broy bro, but he was pissed off, man.
Yo,
hey, we need that. Come on, buddy.
Yeah.
And all the rest of you, bro, you guys in your pink polos or whatever, if you want, look, here's just like a pointer. If you want to be an asshole and mean and shitty and condescending, if you're doing it in service of the good guy side, you can basically do as much of that as you want and not be condemned for it. You can, matter of fact, be kind of held up for it. So, if the impulse is there, not saying from personal experience or anything, but like if the impulse to call people stupid to their face exists, just do it in service of the things that are good. And then you can do it all you want. It's fun.
We'll, for the start of the occupation, we'll remember how it started.
We're in the camps. And,
right. We're in
telling the stories in the camps.
Oh my God.
You were right about there being camps. Just what kind of camps, we're not sure.
The climate camps are coming. Don't worry, everybody. They are around the corner.
You're gonna be right about that one.
That one, I'm sure of.
That cake is baked.
God. Few times.
All right, you want to do some headlines?
Yeah, you can take the first one.
Oh, I can take the first one? Okay. On Friday, Donald Trump will be meeting with Putin in Alaska. White House aides said that the knee pads that they brought for President Trump used to belong to one Jenna Jameson.
The meeting will take... Yes, there you go. Sorry, just lay off the bell. The meeting will take place at the home of famous Tina Fey impersonator Sarah Palin. The location was chosen because Putin said he can see it from his massive global surveillance system.
That's right. Also, in other news, the consumer price index was released with 2.7% inflation over last year. But if you strip away food and gas prices, the rate is a lot higher. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick responded, "We love taking away food and fuel."
Of course he did. Get gone to Texas. Texas Democrats are still trying to keep Governor Abbott from redistricting. Their newest tactic, moving to a 3-story walk-up apartment.
That's right. Here in town, National Guard troops began arriving after Trump declared a crime emergency. They have so far mostly surrounded 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where a convicted felon was recently seen scowling around on the roof.
He was out there.
He was on the roof.
He was on the roof. I thought that was AI when I first saw it. This can't be true. I said it's here. And I saw it again, and I was like, oh, this is definitely true. All right. Back in Alaska, a large glacial outburst flooded an area known as the Suicide Basin, but a temporary wall was built by the Army Corps of Engineers to save the capital city of Juneau from the rushing floodwaters, prompting the response from the Russian advanced delegation. Oops, we missed. Jesus.
That's right.
Come on, man. Oh, that's so God. Tomorrow's going to be crazy.
It's going to be a show.
It's going to be a show, man. Okay.
The White House is editing displays at the Smithsonian in their bid to remove what they call, quote, divisive material. So get in line to see the new exhibit, Why an Above Ground Railroad Would Have Made More Sense.
Yeah, we could have kept our eyes on you. Other changes to the Smithsonian hit the zoo, where the cuttlefish were told to only cuddle fish of a different gender, and the Black Panthers were all euthanized. Oh, Fred. Earlier this week, the website for the National Archives was missing key sections of the U.S. Constitution, including the 14th Amendment. Whichever one is about quarantining soldiers. Police are still looking for the digital Nicolas Cage, but so far have just turned up a few John Travolta lookalikes. Christ, to kill the Panthers is insane. Euthanize them. That's not funny.
To be clear, we don't actually have Black Panthers at the National Zoo, but whoever wrote this thought that was much funnier.
Jesus Christ.
The Trump administration answered questions about the missing sections of the Constitution, of the document, by holding a press conference. A reporter identified as Clippy asked, "I see you're trying to commit treason. Would you like help formatting that?"
Clippy and Grok get together.
Yo, could you imagine?
That marriage isn't allowed.
No.
Shortly. According to police in LA, mass thieves made off with $7,000 worth of Labubu dolls in a heist being described as the dumbest heist of all time, displacing the previous dumbest heist of all time, in which criminals hid thousands of valuable secret documents in a bathroom. No telling who's next, but authorities are warning people to lock up their Beanie Babies.
That's right.
Oh, God.
Those are the headlines. They make you feel better, Tez?
I'm sorry. I wasn't ready for the Dead Panthers, the euthanize.
Well, they had free breakfast, you know.
Yeah, you can't have that.
You can't have that.
No, the problem is when they started trying to link with the snow leopards. That's where it all goes to shit.
That's right. Yeah.
The class struggle.
Yeah. Well, you don't want any of those biracial panthers. No, it's a little too hard. There's not a box for them to check. What kind of a panther are you? I don't know. I kind of feel like my snow leopard side and my Black Panther side, you know. Mess around and come out looking like a jaguar.
Oh God, the 3 spots clause.
Oh, 3 spots. No. No.
Okay. All right.
Well, I
need
Can we take a break?
I think so. God,
we're going to take a break. We'll come back with the rundown. I hope Brian doesn't do something to us.
I know.
Oh my God. All right. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Black Panther.
Nunca pensé. Los zapatos me comerían la cara. No, nunca pensé. Los zapatos me comerían la cara. Le di la espalda a los míos y pensé que todo iría bien. Nunca pensé que los leopardos me comerían la cara. Slow it down. Never thought a leopard would eat my face. No, I never thought a leopard would eat my face. Well, I turned my back on my own kind, but I somehow thought that I'd be fine. No, I never thought the leopards would eat.
Come into the sun.
I'm a little nervous.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
Leopards.
That was.
Look, how do we get to that? It doesn't get any better. I don't know, Brian, how fast you're working, what you just have on deck, but
that's energy, baby.
That's crazy. I was like, oh wow.
I think that's called Brian read the script and like thus prepared.
Well, we couldn't prepare for panthers and snow leopards mating, and that was not in the script. That was not.
He knows us so well that he read the joke and then was like, "I know where these 2 idiots are going."
That is actually super plausible.
That is very possible.
Oh my God, I found these too, which is terrible. I'm just out here promoting it, but
Brooklyn's
the
Brooklyn Stout.
No,
Dragon Stout.
Dragon Stout.
Yeah, real Jamaican. Okay.
It's been so long.
Good for you.
Okay.
Celebrating. See, you're importing things with high carbon footprint. It's in glass, no less.
I'm there again. The problem.
You're doing great.
Deep
All right, you want to talk about a problem?
Let's talk.
Now we've come to the part of the show called The Rundown. This is where I tell you about some stuff that's going on in the news. If we were professionals, it would sound a little something like this.
What the fuck was that?
Ah! All right. That's
Beltway Radio and beyond in Washington, D.C. I'm Emmy-nominated TV newsman and just bona fide sexual beast, J. Scott Smith. And this is the part of the show where I tell some stuff about well, maybe not me, but somebody else is going to tell some stuff about what's happening in the news. So what's going on in the news, fellas?
Thanks, Jay. Special shout out to Jay because I, at my actual job, had this incredible thing that's going to happen. We have an interview tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the person is a Spartan. I know from their resume, like Jay. So I'm going to make sure to be wearing, I have a jacket that's a blue, I have to wear a jacket at work and look like a grown up, which I hate. It's a blue jacket, but on the inside, it's the liner is all the Michigan stuff on the inside. And I wear this a lot I think it's not shocking to anybody, but I'm going to be sure to be wearing it tomorrow morning so that when I can shake hands and be like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Pow! You
don't miss an opportunity.
I don't, but I want a medal. Here's why. When I was reading
medals, we're at 2 medals. All right, we need to start having a medal count of how many medals.
I'm like Michael Phelps.
Exactly. We're at 2 medals for this show. 2 medals. Yes.
I read through the resumes and I looked and I said, I think this one is the best despite this obvious flaw. So I
look at you.
If I had my druthers, I'm gonna pick that person. And I'm doing it, because I was able to be objective despite this thing. So I'm growing.
That is growth.
Yeah.
That is growth.
Okay. So growth is a thing that happens if you eat healthy and, exercise and do all the things that, make you be a good, healthy, growing person. And one of the places that we get recommendations for all of that is a place called the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
What's that?
In Atlanta, Georgia.
That's a thing?
It is a thing. It was, just so you know, created and placed there in the South at a time when, how people are like, oh, well, they'll just move things to low-wage countries and stuff. Well, low-wage countries used to mean the South in the United States because the economically depressed area. And one of the things that kept happening to people who lived in the Deep South was they kept getting worms, of all things. And it turns out they were getting worms because they would all go to poop in a shady spot under a tree, and then they'd all walk through the shady spot under the tree in their bare feet and get worms. And the scientists that were studying that eventually and figured out how to prevent it by telling people to dig outhouses. Shocking. Nobody said the South was smart. And so then those scientists eventually, that mission that was started there during the Depression became what is now the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is why it's in Atlanta. Okay? But that's not what we want to talk about. There was a shooting there. Police in Atlanta said that this 30-year-old guy who believed that the COVID vaccine had made him ill went and shot up the buildings where the CDC is, and he unloaded 500 rounds of ammo.
So much ammo.
500 rounds.
That's a lot of ammo.
That's so much. That is melt the barrel of your gun amounts. So they said they found a rifle and then several handguns, I think 5 guns in total. But okay, that's 100 rounds per gun. Let's say the majority of them went through the rifle, but and they're not saying, but we all know what it is. It's an AR-15. And okay, that is a lot. That is a lot. And even if you've got burst or something, you can't fire that much that quickly. So this dude was shooting at these buildings for a while, right? And then he shot himself. And he killed a cop in the process of it, who is a father of 2 and about to be 3 kids. So, that was awesome. The father of the gunman is the one who had a bunch of guns, but he had them locked up in a safe. So he was doing the thing that was sort of responsible.
That's what we asked. That's all the place we're trying to start with the guns in America, just a safe. That's where I want to start.
The gunman pried it apart and broke into the safe to get him out. So All
right. What do you want me to, you had him
at that point.
Yeah. All right. Maybe you could get a different safe, but I'm not throwing hands up at someone to be like, oh, do more. Like a safe is a good, maybe it has to be a better safe because the safes I know prying them out isn't really an option.
Probably not, but
it depends on the safe you have.
Yeah. I mean, he made the effort, I would say.
Yeah, I'm getting no complaints there.
No culpability there, but so this guy shot up the place and he did a lot of damage. Everybody had to go home and work remote, which the Trump people hate. And and RFK, who is in charge of this operation, right? He's in charge of HHS, which oversees BBC. He was incredibly callous about the response. He was like, "Is everybody all right?" And then they were like, "No, we're all traumatized." He's like, "Well, there's not a lot of science about whether trauma happens or not.
Maybe the CDC will now take upon, and they can actually. I know what is that? Is it a Dickey Amendment? You can't do it still, or maybe they got repealed. But maybe the CDC is studying gun laws now.
The CDC can now study gun violence.
They did, but it's not at the full level though. I still feel like there's it's contained, it's regulated. But maybe this is the time that you.
But they could, but they won't. And the guy did this because of all the bullshit conspiracy stuff, right? And he believed a bunch of things. His parents took him to the doctor. He was 30, by the way, and still living with his parents. But he probably because housing prices are outrageous.
Right. I mean, that's not even. Yeah, that might be okay right now because
it's fine. We're not casting aspersions on that. That's totally the only way to survive these days. But the guy, his parents said that they had taken him to see, or he'd been evaluated by numerous doctors who didn't identify any physical problems with him. But the guy believed that his COVID vaccine had messed him up in some way.
That's stronger than any expert talking to you.
That's right. And then he reacted to it. And so when people talk about the sort of anti-science bullshit conspiracy stuff that Kennedy and some of these other people are spouting all the time, for them, they're untouchably rich. It's consequence free. It doesn't really ever come home to them that he's railing against all this stuff. He's got his shots, right? And his kids have their shots. So he's not taking on any of the risk. But now it turns out maybe he is, because these people are believing this stuff and they are reacting to it. And we've been saying it's only a matter of time. This is the first little side skirmish, around this fight. But I can imagine this getting worse.
But I mean, it gets. This is where the democracy and everything kind of can start to fall apart. Is that you have a segment, a 25-30% segment that believes these conspiracy theories and whatever. That's fine. But then, if you look at the way who's in charge currently and who they fire, do you have another segment of 50% of the population that stops believing in stuff because they think it's not true? Right?
Well, they don't want it to be true.
Or they don't want it.
It's inconvenient for them.
But the labor numbers, right? Do people eventually stop? And there are other ways that you can start to get those numbers from the private sector. But from the government, if you look and you say, oh, I don't trust that anymore. So you have a trust coming from both sides, a trust issue. And this is all built on trust. And I mean, for me, this is an interesting, it also goes back to the axis of guns, right? And obviously, again, there's a lot of them out here, but all right, this is the CDC and COVID-19 vaccines. But I mean, we didn't even talk about in New York in the NFL offices, right? Around,
Well, we did. You were off that week.
Oh, I was off that week, yes.
But yeah.
But the same thing. Go. It's access, and people again, people feel helpless, and again, gun gives you power in a sense, and you go out and you exhibit your power, and we have these same stories over and over again. I don't know this, but I mean,
the NFL
disinformation
thing's
is
maybe a
insane.
little different because it is possible that guy, because he played football, was all messed up.
Yes, but I'm
right?
saying the access to guns.
Yeah, but the remedy that he sought was very similar in that, like, if the institutions that I would need to depend on aren't able to deliver for me, I have nothing to lose, and I can only deliver for myself. Yeah, that's the thing for sure.
And I mean, yeah,
and a gun does give you power.
If you do this in New York, which I know New York's some of the laws changed with the Supreme Court decisions, but I mean, New York is still a very strict place, like, of trying to get guns. So, but obviously, yeah, the access to it, and people are able to go out and do
But you
things.
can get them in Nevada and drive to New York because
you can. Yeah,
that's, we don't have national laws around that stuff. We don't have a national system around that stuff, and so the patchwork system leaves open these obvious holes. And yeah, the
well-regulated militia. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking for. If we're going to be original,
just get to those words.
I just wanted to,
There's 27 words, guys.
Yeah, got it. That's all I want.
There was a fucking comma.
You can have it. I'm just not. Obviously, I get it. You want to go shoot your guns? It's cool. I understand. I've been.
I like guns. I like guns. Fun.
Shooting guns is fine. But we're trying to limit these other folks from shooting other people. That's what we're trying to do. Not you.
Yeah,
you're fine.
You're good.
You're good.
You're one of the good ones.
Crazy.
All right, so we could dwell on the fact that shared reality is collapsing around us, and I think if you wanted to, you could basically tie every story that we're talking to about to that, because so many people are saying, like, here's this problem that we have groups of people who don't, and the thing about the numbers of the BLS or any of that kind of thing really does kind of play into that. People I know who I think are smart, who are accomplished people, are now saying things like, well, these numbers used to be accurate, but they're not anymore.
That's not true. They're still accurate. That's
crazy
not
statement.
True.
That is
true.
It's but even they're not even like self-aware enough to evaluate that statement. How insane that statement could possibly sound to an objective observer. It just doesn't make any sense. And we are, as you have so eloquently put it, this whole thing kind of depends on trust, right? And part of that trust is on the core information about which we are going to debate. You can't have disagreements. You ever do debate in high school or something like that? They give you both sides, the pro and con. They give you the set of information, right? That is supposed to be, you both have to work off the same set of information and then make your case with this same information. You don't get to bring in extra stuff or make up things or whatever. It has to be like vetted. And that's how debate's supposed to work. And now we're in a place where people are just making up stuff wholesale and then asserting it as fact and using that to form their positions. And it leads to crazy shit like somebody shooting up the CDC. It also leads to entertaining crazy shit like MTG and Laura Loomer having a Twitter fight over who's a slut and who's not or whatever. Don't go look at that, by the way.
Please
don't go look at that. But it is the dumbest possible way to conduct governance.
Right. No, hands down.
And that is the problem. Speaking of dumb ways to conduct governance, let's go to Maryland.
Give me free state.
The free state. Hooray! So Maryland's known for a lot of things, right? Like crabs, Old Bay, horse racing, black-eyed Susans, Orioles, of course. A lot of good stuff comes from Maryland. I'm not upset to say that, right?
No, not at all.
One of the good things that comes from Maryland, apparently, are their judges, because they do judge things. But one of the things that Donald Trump hates is judges. So the Justice Department has filed a lawsuit against all 15 federal district judges in Maryland, which has never happened before, over limits to the pace of deportation. And so they are in a trial, which is being presided over by a judge from Virginia, because, of course, they can't preside over their own stuff. And the judge, let's say, expressed skepticism over the DOJ's argument as to what their problem is. So here's plain and simple. The courts are tasked with like sorting out whether things that the government does are legal or not all the time. That's like a primary function of the federal district courts in the United States. They also do some like trial stuff of like big deal federal cases, murders or whatever, things across state lines. But a lot of what they do is sort out whether the thing the government is doing to somebody is legitimate or legal or whatever, right? So in this current situation, specifically revolving around immigration, the government is doing stuff really quickly, like rapid fire. Part of the Trump administration's strategy is what they call to flood the zone. It's to do so much bad, crazy shit all at once that the systems can't really handle it. And the courts are part of those systems. They have to like adjudicate this stuff. If the government does something to you and you get into court about it, basically the rule is everything's got to stop until it gets processed through the courts.
Exactly.
Okay, so facing this deluge of cases coming in, the chief justice or the chief judge of the U.S. District Court for the state of Maryland put a blanket standing order in place that grants a 2-day stay on any removal proceedings of anybody who files a petition claiming wrongful detention. Basically, if you get into court, it starts a 2-day clock at a minimum.
Yeah.
2 days, which is supposed to give the government's lawyers and the defendant's lawyers a chance to get their shit together to go make their case in court. This is not like a crazy thing or unprecedented that a lot of circuit courts, district courts, and even some of the federal circuits have standing orders in place for certain types of cases that basically say if you get it into court, it stops everything dead and it starts like a play clock, right? Because this country is based around the idea that everybody gets a fair shake, everybody gets to make their case in court. The Maryland U.S. District Court in Maryland put this in place, and then after, as you would expect, lots of cases got in, had their 2 days, and then were immediately ruled on by the court. Oh yeah, you can deport this person. You've got legal. This is all legal. And off you go, right? And the government was successfully deporting plenty of people out of Maryland. Right. I don't want to give the impression that this somehow stopped.
Yeah.
But the Trump people were so irritated by the idea that they had to actually go to court to prove their case rather than
the 2-day pause is too long.
Yeah, that was 2 days too long for them. They couldn't tolerate that. So instead of appealing this up to the Fourth Circuit, which would be who would hear this case, they were just like, nah, we're suing everybody at the court. And they went to the Fourth Circuit to sue, or they went to the Maryland District Court to sue, and they were like, you're doing what now? And like the clerks couldn't even like process the lawsuit. They're like, we don't know what law you're trying to sue under. Like, this doesn't make any sense to us. So, okay, well, they got it into court, so you can sue, right? So the Fourth Circuit sent a judge to deal with it. His name is, I think, Cullen. He was assigned to hear the case by the Richmond-based U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. And he said that these things are like a real test of separation of powers and all kinds of stuff. Here he has his quote. We get into a situation where the individual judicial defendants are subject to depositions. Their internal correspondence emails would be subject to discovery, Judge Cullen said in the hearing. He said that to start, quote, probing officials at the White House and all of their correspondence and communications, that'd be like what would have to happen in the discovery. That really raises some thorny issues about, attorney-client privilege and, what has to be disclosed, what doesn't have to be disclosed. Like, this is just not an avenue that you can really go down. The Maryland judges asked the Cullen to dismiss the case, and he said he's going to issue a ruling by Labor Day. So that's where we are with this. But that's not the thing that I wanted to talk about. That's just the background.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to read the bolded out bit here that has this incredible quote?
All right. Private attorneys representing the Maryland judges, including Paul D. Clement, a leading conservative lawyer who served as the Solicitor General under President George W.
Let's just
Bush.
pause there for a second. Paul Clement is on the good guy side in this argument.
That's kind of crazy.
Do you realize how fucking far we have come that Paul Clement is
That's
on the
crazy.
good guy, the guy who argued for the Patriot Act.
Yes.
And all of those things is the good guy in this. Continue.
Paul Clement. Crazy. Argued in illegal filings that the Justice Department could have challenged the automatic pause on deportations in any of the cases in which it has been applied, rather than taking the extraordinary step of suing all federal judges in the state.
Right.
None of them could hear the case because they recused themselves to avoid a conflict of interest.
Naturally.
Right, it makes sense. Quote, the bottom line is that this suit is without precedent and wreaks unprecedented havoc on the judiciary. And quote, the judge's attorney wrote, they added that, quote, despite being open as a matter of law at all hours, end quote, the federal court is, quote, not a Denny's.
Yes.
That is true. They're not a Denny's.
Paul Clement went into court and argued that federal courts are not, in fact, Denny's.
You can
That's
hang
true.
around. You hang around so long that we're out here we're talking about Paul Clement, and that's insane.
Yeah, I think that's also like one of these things where it's very inside baseball. Like if you see that name and it triggers any, like you recognize it at all, then you obviously read too much news and you should probably get some friends or something. But like that or friends who aren't politics nerds, maybe that.
Yeah, exactly.
All of my friends are already into this, right?
Watch some reality TV.
Yeah, watch some garbage television and fill your brain with something else. But yeah, there you go. Not a Denny's. Have you ever been in a not a Denny's?
Nah, I've never been in a not a Denny's.
Have you been in a Denny's?
In a Denny's, yes. A few
Yeah.
times.
What, you're going to Vegas. There's a Denny's in Vegas.
There's Denny's. Yes. I will not be there. But
the Grand Slam is like $17.99 instead of $5.99. Well, it's Vegas. Okay, well, there you go. That's the rundown. You want to take a break before we get into the topic that we don't want to talk about?
Sure, let's take a break.
All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweet.
Have you heard the good word? Trump's gonna get it done. He'll release the Epstein files on day one. The libs will cry when those names are exposed. Trump's gonna see that justice is imposed. What's that? Oh no, he needs a few months. He wants a case airtight, no bumps. His AG Pam Bondi says files on her desk, and MAGA's got binders they can attest. He's releasing the files to catch all the pedophiles. Never met Epstein or touched any teen. He's draining the swamp real clean with Epstein's name off screen. We got new info, the files were in your mind. Watch Epstein's jail cam, edited for time. No list of accomplices, the guy just died. And all this talk of conspiracy, just people who lie. And Trump, he never spent time with that creep, except for the flights and the orgy he peeped. No surprise, there's no client list to exist. Sorry, MAGA friends, it was all just a myth. He's releasing the files to catch all the pedophiles. Never met Epstein or touched any teen. He's draining the swamp real clean with Epstein's name off screen. The files exist, made by Obama, Hill, and Biden. Let's not talk Epstein no more or ever again. Reminder that Trump and Epstein were not pals. Why do you care? care so much about it. All my boys and gals, from now on, if you say Epstein out loud, you're Antifa scum, disloyal and proud, a threat to humanity like Rosie O'Donnell, deported to prison without a trial. And if ever leaks and Trump's name appears 100 times over the course of some years, expect a visit from the army and feds, Trump with a Sharpie erasing what's said. He's releasing the files to catch all the pedophiles. Never met Epstein or touched any teen. He's draining the swamp real clean with Epstein's name off screen.
I really hate that sad loser, Mr. Newberger.
Who, me?
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping out?
Brian, that was amazing.
Crazy.
That was fantastic, I gotta say. What did you think, Tez?
Oh, I mean, we got 1920. They had a lot of zingers in there, though.
That was
There's
good.
a lot of zingers. I'll give them that one.
Yeah. So the reason that we played that, right, and we're talking about the Epstein list is because that is the main focus of what Trump is trying to take your mind off of with invading the District of Columbia. So while we're about to talk about the occupation of our city, what we want you to remember is Donald Trump is on the Epstein list and has raped teenage girls. That's what we want you to focus on.
And is that working? I don't know.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. You gotta throw an allegedly on there. That is insane to just drop that allegedly. I don't even.
I mean, are you got credible evidence that it's not?
I'm just saying. You know, the ChipChat general counsel doesn't. Didn't know you were coming out to say that.
Yeah, well, I fired that guy. He told me things that I didn't like.
Of course, yeah.
So I just fired him.
Obviously.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, just remember that really this story that we're talking about is about what's on the Epstein list files tape, guys. Okay? So, with that in mind, what's going on in DC? And this is a bit fluid. So we just want to give the information that we have at this point when we're going to press now, which is Thursday night. It is the 14th of August. So things could be changing. Here's what people need to know. Some people know this, some people don't know this, so it's a little bit confusing. First thing you got to know is that the Washington, D.C., if you're not from here, you might not know this. It's a federal district. It's not a state. It doesn't have a lot of the same rules and laws that would apply if it was a state. One of the things about that is that for the most part, the district itself and everything in it belongs to Congress, very specifically Congress, not the executive branch, but to Congress. It is a purview of Congress. Its budget has to be approved by Congress. The laws that govern it were created by Congress. Until home rule was put in place, Congress themselves had to personally administer, congressmen from New Hampshire had to somehow be the ones to figure out whether
the New Hampshire ones are nice as well too, but they were usually segregationists that come from the South.
Okay, but
the longest of time. But yes, yeah.
One of the things that Congress people used to complain about is that they didn't realize that when they got sent to Washington, they would have to do so much administrative bullshit to administer the federal district. They just did. They didn't. That's not what they came to do. They came to represent their constituents, and it turns out they got to figure out parking rates or whatever. So in the 70s, Congress granted DC home rule with the Home Rule Act. I think it's 1973, and it says a bunch of things, but it creates an elected mayor, city council, and various other stuff. There have been a few changes here and there over the years, but none of that's really relevant. The part of that law that's relevant to this situation is that in the Home Rule Act, it says that the president can request the services of the Metro Police Department, MPD, for a period of 48 hours in an emergency, and then for an extended period of 30 days if he notifies in writing various members of Congress, which is like the heads of certain committees in the House and Senate, leadership and over, House oversight, Senate oversight, all of that kind of stuff, right? And no more than 30 days unless Congress, because remember, Congress owns DC, unless Congress then votes to authorize an extended period of time, basically giving the police to the control of the executive branch, which would take a 60 vote, threshold in the Senate to achieve. So, like, that's pretty unlikely. So when people say this is a federal takeover of the MPD, that's kind of correct, but it isn't exactly correct because he's not federalizing it. He's requesting the services.
He doesn't have to federalize it.
He doesn't have to federalize it because it's already federal.
Yeah, it's already federal. Yeah.
Right. So that's one of the things that people need to know. Another sort of maybe very technical thing that you need to know about this is that the command and control structure of the MPD has to remain somewhat still the same. It still has to go through the chief, which in this case is Pam Smith, and the precinct captains and all of that stuff. It's not like they can just like implant federal agents like within the police department. But what they can do is change policy in how the laws are applied or what the guidelines are for, like, thresholds for arrest and things like that. But they can't change any of the laws or any of that kind of thing. So that's one of the technical things. Another very technical thing that people probably don't know because they're not from here is that in most places, you have an elected district attorney or Commonwealth's attorney or, sort of like top prosecutor in your district or in your county or whatever. And then the prosecutors that work for them, report to them. But that person is somewhat accountable to the voters in the jurisdiction that they administer. That is not the case in Washington, D.C. The prosecutors from every level, from the top to the bottom, work for the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is currently run by, of all people, Janine fucking Pirro.
He was very colorful in the press conference on.
Yes, colorful is a word. Red wine colored, I think, is the actual word. But all the prosecutors, they're not accountable to any elected officials in the District of Columbia. They're not selected by the city council or the mayor. They're not voted on by any residents of the district. The attorney general is now an elected position, but that position doesn't have anything to do with how things are prosecuted. So if you hear people complaining about the way that crime is prosecuted or, they're lenient on defendants or whatever, those people are not responsive to the district itself. Like, there's nobody in DC who voted for lenient prosecutors. That's not a thing. They don't have the authority to do that. Those are all appointed by the U.S. Attorney's Office and by the federal government. So just to be very clear about that. The third sort of technical thing that you need to know about this is that the National Guard, right? States have National Guards. The district has a National Guard. In a state, your guard belongs to your governor, right? And if the feds want to borrow the guard or use the guard or call out the guard, they have to get permission from the governor, or they have to do some fairly extraordinary things like federalizing the guard, which is subject to a bunch of other rules and stuff like that. In the district, they don't have to go through anything like that. The guard belongs to the president. And so he can use them at his discretion whenever he wants, which, so he claimed that he couldn't do it on January 6th, and now he claims that he can do it, for this fake emergency. Don't try to like work out the inconsistencies or hypocrisies of this. You're just going to cause your brain to explode. But like those are the things that you need to know. What is happening in the district is that in addition to the MPD being now working for the federal government, there's also been a bunch of federal agents of various other law enforcement agencies brought to the district to do things. These are people like DEA, FBI, ICE, CPB, Federal Protective Service. And if you're from here, you're kind of used to seeing all this stuff around anyway.
They're around, yeah.
There's like 20 some odd actual sworn police departments in the District of Columbia. They all have various things that they can and can't
Park
do.
Police is one you
Park
forgot.
Police is a big one, but all the universities have their own police departments. The zoo has its own police department of all things. So like there's a lot of that around. But like, yeah, so all of these other federal police are around and they're doing stuff. And they can arrest you. The National Guard cannot arrest you. They are not allowed to engage in law enforcement at all unless there's certain circumstances which would require a lot more to be going on.
More
so
Congress.
It would require Congress. That is the basic kind of background stuff you need to know about what's going on in the district. How we got here is also very, very important. We touched on this a little bit last week, but it hadn't happened yet. So we're going to reiterate. There's a guy who worked for Elon and Trump. His name is Big Balls. He is, by all measures, a grown man. I mean, I'm not saying he's like a grown ass man, but he is officially an adult man.
Yeah,
and he has a job, and he's all of these things. He got his ass kicked by a 15-year-old girl, and he got pretty well whooped. I mean, and I don't know what this kid looks like, but I'm sure there's some 15-year-old girls who whoop my ass too. But that's embarrassing, right? You don't want to get your ass kicked by a 15-year-old girl. That's a bad story to have to tell. So after he got his ass kicked by a 15-year-old girl, and then he called the cops, they arrested her. But now he's got this problem of like, oh yeah, I got my ass kicked by a 15-year-old girl, and I got to go to like file a police report and swear to it in court and all that stuff. I'm never going to get laid now. So he like pitches a fit. He calls Trump. He's like, I just got my ass kicked. And Trump goes, was it by a 15-year-old girl? And he goes, no, definitely not. It was a bunch of criminal thugs. And Trump's like, okay, well then I'm calling out the National Guard. And Big Boss is like, phew, now nobody will know. So now we have the National Guard roaming around the streets of the District of Columbia, specifically because Big Balls got his ass kicked by a 15-year-old girl. That's the background. All right, Tez. Now, what is this like, on the ground for folks in D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, as of last night, there are definitely more. Whether you're in U Street corridor, Navy Yard is obviously a big place, and I think there's a few areas we probably should start with first. I think there's more history into this, which is when do Congress and when do citizens of Washington D.C. get antsy about democracy, right? And democracy being specifically representation, right, in the Congress, right? And like DC gets incorporated or whatever. I think it's something 1802 or something like that. And there was, right, initially, like there was an elected city council back then, and the mayor was appointed by the president, whatever. But then everything changes in 1871.
What happened around that time?
Around that time, there was a civil war in DC, and
you mean the War of Northern Aggression?
Of Northern Aggression. But it's interesting, though, because I think Abraham Lincoln, D.C. has always been used as a staging ground for the federal government to try things out. Emancipation is one of those things, right? That happens here first, right? It is a D.C. Emancipation Day, which is multiple years early. I want to say it's either 1862 or 62.
Yeah, but it's also tax day.
It is, yeah. It's also tax day.
It's what makes tax day really 2 days late every year.
Yeah,
so
but again, the federal government is trying something out here. But initially, like DC has always been in a weird situation where white people in DC have been okay with giving away their democracy when more black people have come here. So I think that history should also be added to that. But yes, home rule happens, right? We have a city council. We get control over the police department, right? We have a mayor, elected mayor, right?
For life.
Yeah, exactly. So that happens. But I think right now, right, in DC, there's a few things. One, I think an objective observer would say, okay, yes, there are at times groups of kids, massive groups of kids, 40 plus. I've seen them with my own eyes. That are moving through the street and probably scare a lot of people. I don't necessarily feel frightened by them, but I guess I could see where people. So I want to acknowledge that. I think the crime statistics obviously are what they are. Crime as a whole has been down across the country, significantly down in DC. But I also know crime is a feeling stat. It's not about the real numbers. It's all about feeling. So yeah, like I think some of those reports of people of how they feel about it, and I think it's more of like, right, homicides are severely down. But if people are feeling like people are breaking in and stealing, larceny, that I think almost that drives the feeling more. Carjackings, I also understand the city's always had an issue with carjackings. Most cities do. It's a crime that really, again, it frightens people, right? It's one of those ones, like it's one of the ones that scares people from being like outside, and you can't really have that. All right, all of those things we can agree on, but the approach and when it's happening, yeah, no, we can't agree on that, right? There are things that the federal government could easily be doing. There's ways that you could fund things, right? If you want to stop people from jumping over the goddamn fares, maybe fund Metro where people don't have to pay for it, right? And the federal government has the ability to do that. If you're interested in getting these kids out, like, is there something else that they can do, right? Can we invest? Like, there are ways to curb.
Could we expand the jobs program?
Yeah, there are ways to approach this, and I think the message or the feeling on the street is that, there's a federal presence now more than ever, and they're combined with MPD. And there are checkpoints now that run on Benning Road or down on U Street, and they're pulling over people with broken tail lights and seeing if they can get more. And Pam Smith has said that, now we'll cooperate. I mean, we're not a sanctuary city no more after whatever just happened. Like, it's over with. That's done.
The policy stuff, right? So the cooperation, it's important to note where they are and what kind of enforcement they're doing and where they aren't.
Yeah, exactly. They're not east of the river from what I've seen.
They're not east of the river at all. They haven't crossed over to any of the stuff on that side.
They got a whole agency, Homeland Security is over there, right?
Yeah, but they're not going to go there, at all. There's a guaranteed. There was an interesting bit of reporting on NPR. Frank Langford, who's a Dynamite reporter, is covering this from the national perspective, right? Not our local news is covering this very differently. And he said he went up on U Street and was asking people there, and most of the people there said, I guess there's crime, but I don't really feel it. It doesn't feel too risky to me. I'm out at 2-3 in the morning. I don't really see anything, and I don't care. And I can personally tell you that that area, it doesn't feel risky at all. The only things that I've ever confronted around there is drunk people being stupid, but it isn't like a criminal element by any stretch of the imagination. And then he went to Congress Heights and talked to some folks there, and they were like, oh yeah, crime is a real thing. We got to deal with it. But we're not saying we wouldn't welcome more police presence, but we need maybe if the federal government wanted to help, they could hire more cops and get people here on a permanent basis to kind of help keep things under control. And then he asked them two very important questions. Have you seen anybody, this federal presence, DEA or FBI? And they all said no. And then he said, do you expect to see anybody over here? And they all said no. This is all a performance thing. Because where they really are, they were down in Georgetown doing seatbelt checks on
the National Mall. What are we doing?
I mean, what crime is going on down there?
The Post did this story, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, of where the concentration of crime is at, right?
Yeah.
The majority of crime that happens in DC is concentrated across 15 blocks.
Yeah.
It's 15.
And it's done by there's the math on this is crazy, that especially amongst violent crime, that they can use math to plot this down to there's 5 or 6 individual people
right,
who are the nexus of a lot of this stuff. And if you could just get them to cool it, you could really make a huge dent in a lot of this kind of thing.
No, I think the piece here is like the unhoused individuals, right? I thought that I watched that news conference, right? For mostly its entire. I had to turn it off kind of the end when they go into questions, because the questions they were going through were like from friggin' like right wing people who have obviously been allowed into the press con. Like the first few, I was like, oh, I'm not here for that. But yeah, no, I think he's to clear out like, and let's be honest, the city government was already on some clear out. Like, I can't sit here and just make it like, oh, this has become a Trump thing right now. But no, this, when you put the strong arm of the federal government behind anything, these things happen a lot quicker. When the federal government wants to do something, it happens. And I think you saw. I think this evening I was reading that a lot of the shelters, like, they're going around and warning people because the raids are going to start happening in the next few days.
They are happening.
They're happening now. Yeah. So yeah,
and the DC government found they basically created 60 more beds out of thin air, but they've got about 800 people that they've got to find a place for. And Trump was very callous about it. He's like, they got to go. I don't care where they go, but they can't be here. And
no details about where they're supposed to go. Like,
yeah. And he's like, we'll take care of them. I'm like, sure you are.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Same way Giuliani took care of the homeless in New York, right? Dumped them in the East River. Like, this is terrifying for these people who are there. And the way that the regime frames this is like that these people, this is a choice. This is an active lifestyle choice that they want to be living in tents on the street.
Some of these people work 2 jobs.
Some of them work 2 jobs, and some of them can't afford any place else to live. And or they're experiencing addiction, or they've got mental health crises going on, or like whatever. We saw them clear out several of the squares downtown. Franklin Square was one of them, where they renovated the whole area. And that was, we saw them do it in Lafayette. We saw them do it in McPherson. I don't know. It's just like there's a moral thing here, and I don't expect the Trump people to ever do the moral thing. But there's also like an economic and logistical problem here of, if you're going to invest, you're investing a lot of money to move a very small number of people into the most expensive type of housing you can imagine, which is jail. So like, I don't see how you balance the checkbook on this one, to be honest.
Well, it's not about that. You run deficits, and people spend, and that's okay because it's under a Republican administration. I mean, yeah, this is frustrating, and it eventually will go from frustrating to frightening, because we'll see some of the responses that end up happening. And you got to kind of be out in the streets for this one here. You got to you got to make your voice heard. Like, there's no. You're
not chuck sandwiches at the cops.
Yeah, don't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Don't do that. You can yell at them.
Yeah.
If you want to stand there and film them, yell at them. Hold up signs, call them pigs. Like, that's cool. Definitely support that. Make your voice heard. Make sure you know your rights. Make sure that you have a lawyer. Make sure that you know how to say the following phrases. I'm refusing to speak to you, and I want to talk to my lawyer. And that's it. Am I free to leave? That's another one.
Right.
Make sure you know to say that. Am I free to leave? And if they say yes, then leave. Yeah. Don't stand there and give them a reason to make you not free to leave.
Yeah, I remember a colleague of mine. He was not from here, obviously. He said, he was just asking, like, once Trump got elected, he's like, well, what worries you the most? I said, well, I live in the federal city. And I said, at any time, whatever they want to try out around the country, Nixon is famous for this amongst
They're going to do it here first.
Yeah, they do it here. It starts here first. They try all these things out here. This is a sandbox for any federal policy. And what I hope is that we're kind of helpless. And I know I've seen some of the senators and the congressmen who want to introduce legislation to change this. I don't really see how that it has to get signed, right? I don't know what it is. I mean, it's cool. It's a nice gesture, but it has to get signed. And I don't know, the veto comes through where you make it veto proof.
Couldn't do it under Obama. We're certainly not doing it now.
Here. But yeah, we'll have to suffer under this. But I do hope, where possible, the other states, because they talk about Chicago and Oakland has been mentioned, and
Baltimore,
wherever there's a black mayor.
Wherever there's a black mayor. That's a very important point, though.
Yeah, wherever there's a black mayor. And Mira Bowser, she's very skilled politician. She wouldn't comment on the racial aspect, but she highlighted that and she said, "Yeah, this is what's happening. This is who he is targeting." But we don't really have any. There's no jurisdiction for us to make changes to this at this point. There's a very little we can do. What I do hope is that anybody else is around the country is outraged by this. A push for statehood for DC can happen if the rest of the states and the rest of the union, enough of them, actually, if that became a mission for your senator and your congresspeople, that is another way we could go about this. Because, yeah, outside of that, I mean, yeah, we sit here and we have to suffer, and we'll see. And I think for the kids, what I'm very worried about is I don't see any. The kids aren't scared. They're not, and I think that's
they're told to like the cops and the army's cool and all that stuff. Yeah,
but like they're not afraid. I think if I look at the DCU, I mean, there's a fear inside of them, but it's a different type of fear. But I don't. They're not afraid of authority. I've seen enough. I've heard enough of it, and I think that's a recipe for disaster. That we will eventually see here. Because the kids aren't. The kids aren't. I think they're more afraid. I think they're more afraid of each other, and it almost like, at least when I observe, it's like a big bluffing game because people are afraid of between like whatever, like the beefs on Instagram or fucking TikTok or whatever, shit like that. But when it comes to like the police and the authority figures, I don't think these kids are afraid at all, and I think this heavy-handed approach will backfire in one of the worst ways. So
I worry about that a lot too. That the hopelessness,
right,
is in some ways a little liberating, right? If you got nothing to lose, you figure things are, you don't. One of the things that I think people who don't know what poverty looks like often overlook, is they can't conceptualize the idea of somebody having no plan for the future. And especially like in white suburbia, they're always like, surprised when especially young black men are really excited to turn 21 or to turn 25. And they're like, why is this a big deal? And it's because it doesn't occur to white suburbia that a lot of people don't make it to 25.
Yeah. Right.
And so like so many people, especially when we were younger growing up in the 80s and 90s, like a lot of people my age basically assumed they never were going to reach this age because they didn't know anybody who did. And it just didn't so that kind of hope.
And that's real crime. And that's real crime. That's real crime. If we that's like when you want to talk about like actual crime that's happening, that is a different type of and I know you can't equate it because again it's a feeling thing, but when you want like raw statistics, if anybody wants to compare things, by all means go back to the Wayback Machine and look at crime statistics that run through like 88 to 92.
Yeah. And Ray Fledman is dead now, so we can talk about that time. But like that is a time that was real crime. And what we have now is
that's scary. Like
that was scary. I remember that time. But now this is a joke, like if you live through that and people are like, oh yeah, crime in DC is really bad. I'm like, you're like, kidding me?
Oh, like
this is a walk in the park.
Freaking like legit get home before the street lights come on. Because it's
like if the thing you're worried about is that people are out here, like stealing stuff from luxury stores, buddy. We didn't have luxury stores back in the 90s.
No.
Like nobody would dare open a Louis Vuitton store there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mayor Bowser here for a second, though, because you touched on it. We touched on it a little bit briefly here. I think it's been clear over the years that this show and a lot of the people I know, we all have like a lot of feelings about her, and it's not always very positive. But the two kinds of criticism that she often receives is one, that she's a very political, meaning like small p political politician, where she's willing to play both sides. She's kind of wishy-washy, blows in the wind, whatever. That's one thing. The other thing that people are critical of her is that she's very careful, that she's slow to move sometimes. And in this case, those two things are probably the two best attributes to have in a chief executive in a city where she's losing some of her control. The police department doesn't belong to her right now.
Right, it does not.
She's bound by these laws that she's got to give them up, to the feds. And there's also the feds can change some of the policies and stuff, and she has to play ball. So when it comes to this immigration stuff, can you use MPD to do immigration? No. But can you force them to give up the whereabouts of people who might have, who are in the system having been arrested? Yes, you can do that if you're controlling the thing. And now that that Bondi and whatever the DEA guy are in control, they are doing that. And so but Mayor Bowser has done a really good job of riding the wave. That's what we were talking about before. There's a time to fight. There's a time to push. She painted Black Lives Matter. She painted over Black Lives Matter. Yeah. And she, people from outside DC don't understand how critical home rule is to the people here. Yeah. And how precarious it always feels. But it has felt more precarious lately than it ever has. And so the big thing for her to do is to preserve that at all costs. If that means letting the feds run roughshod over a few things here and there, if it preserves home rule, is it worth it? Probably. And that's the calculation that she's making. And I hope everybody's really understanding and thinking about that.
Yeah.
Before they jump down her throat about a lot of things.
I think the other thing, though, that is there's a legacy defining project that's going to happen at RFK. And that
wants that to happen.
That's going, and I think that one there, we can't overlook that. I do find her to be on the national stage adept at actually executing. I might not agree with it, but again, I'm not the mayor of DC either. I'm not that, and I can only imagine the tightrope that has to be walked, specifically because of the way the laws work. And we're always like an act of Congress away from going back to a 3-person commission. Right. And it's always, it's never far away. And I think
the city manager, I remember that.
Well, the city manager was, and at least with that, right? At least with that, you could even pinpoint to whatever the fiscal irresponsibility that was happening at the time. If we're looking at the numbers, right? It was just
sure.
At least that. But this feels different. This is it feels manufactured. It is manufactured.
Very manufactured.
The data is not strong behind it. The data goes exact opposite of it. Doesn't seem to be needed. And there's different ways that the federal government could play a role in Washington, D.C. that is not this. And I don't think the federal government and whatever agencies that are in the District of Columbia currently are able to do the job of the police. I don't think they're trained to do that. Hell, I don't think the police are trained that well to do it. But hey, at least I know I would, if I gotta pick some, I think there's probably better outcomes happening with MPD than there is with FBI.
I saw a video of a federal agent of, I don't remember which agency he was, but he approached a few guys who were sitting on the porch, hanging out. And he was like, "What are you smoking?" And the guy's like, "A cigarette." And basically the cops there, they were clearly from out of town. They they were sort of like asking these young guys, like, what are you doing out here? You know, and they're like, we're sitting on our porch. You know, one guy was, you could see in the video, was like scrolling through his phone, like texting. You know, it was, they were very nonchalant, but also doing nothing, but they knew their rights, right? And this cop, he's like, oh, well, what I'm doing here is I'm reminding everybody about the rules about marijuana, and, you know, you can't be smoking it in public. And it's like,
well, the law is a citation.
Not only that, that's not the law.
Right.
You can't. So, like, if these guys were on their porch,
oh yeah, there's no law for that.
Smoking,
it's not even on a federal
you can
property.
see them from the street.
Yeah,
that's not a thing that you can get busted for, because you're on your own property. You're not on public property. Now, if you're on the sidewalk, that's a different story. But if you're on your own porch, and you know, there's a question about, okay, well, is it visible from the public space or whatever? But the reason that's never prosecuted or never cited even is because it's basically like, it's not an enforceable thing. If you're on your own, it says, the law is very clear. You can smoke on private property.
Right.
Period. End of discussion. Whether that's visible from anywhere else is not part of the law. But this guy didn't know that, you know, and he was out here.
Why should he?
Well, right, because he's not from here and he's not going to know the rules. So, but here he was, like, this is pretextual, obviously. And what he was doing was, you know, acting, his cover story was that he was out here educating these guys on the law. And they were like, that's not the law, guy. You know,
I'm educating you.
Yeah. And so, like, that's a real risk too, because you got somebody, might be some federal marshal guy, you know, from Wisconsin or whatever, doesn't know what the rules are, arrests somebody for something that's totally legal. And now you got a real problem on your hands. Like, hey, you brought in these guys and they don't know what the rules are and they're doing all this crazy shit. Like, you got some problems with this. Also, you know, there's a lot of crime in red states. I don't see any federal presence going on over there. And matter of fact, the majority of crime of like places where the murder rates are the highest are in red states, not in blue states. So I don't understand, you know, well, I do understand. This is racist on its face. I mean, let's be very clear about that too. That this is a black city with a black mayor and black city council, mostly black city council.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that bothers them. That's the kind of home rule they don't like.
No.
So I don't. And Trayon, Jesus Christ, dude, you get back on the council and like 2 seconds later, you're like carrying Trump's water and talking about, yeah, we should get more National Guard out here and crack some skulls and shit. Like, guy, he's going down the Candace Owens route. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this guy.
Hold on, let me give you a few stats right here.
Okay.
We'll go from 1987 and make our way to 1990. We'll make it to 96. All right. So 1987, these are homicides by a year, right? 87, 225, 88, 369, 89, 434, 1990, 472, 1991, 482, 1992, 443, 1993, 454, 1994, 399, 1995, 360, 1996, 397. And it tapers off, right? We go down from 397 to like 301 down into the 200s all the way through 97.
While the population is growing.
While the population is growing. Even in 2004, down to 198. Like, it's decreasing for the most part. And even if you want to take the COVID years, right? 2021, 226, 2022, 203, 2023, 274. Again, I mean, we're talking double, and this is just the homicide rate. But like, there was a time where this place felt completely different. Like where I could be like, oh yeah, it's not safe. Yeah, it's not safe. And that's not now. And that's not now. Is there room for improvement? Can things change? Yes, but to say the city is not safe, to tout it against friggin' other countries in the world that are. Yeah, those numbers were bogus. I mean, the whole
putting soldiers on Constitution Avenue doesn't seem
oxymoron.
Like, yeah, that's hilarious. But like, I don't know how MRAPs running down the mall have anything to do with curbing any kind of crime. I mean, the biggest crime that happens on the mall is the price of the hot dogs at the carts. Like there's no crime going on down there. And you know, going after unhoused people, again, are the unhoused people committing the carjackings? Was that who beat up Big Balls? I don't think so.
No.
So it's just, you know, it's about control, and it's a test balloon. This is Trump trying to see what he can get away with, and can he sort of get people to be numb to the idea of a military occupation of the capital city? Where have we seen that, though? Like, is that not exactly what Mussolini did? Is that not exactly what Franco did? Is this not exactly what Hitler did? Is this not exactly what Pinochet did? This is the very standard Tiananmen Square playbook of the authoritarian, is to bring the military into your capital city, declare some sort of emergency, false or otherwise, and then react to it even if it's not happening. That should be scaring people. That's why I was talking about getting radios.
I mean, I'll talk about it in my forthcoming book, Fast Fascism.
Brought to you by H&M.
There you go.
Fast fashion. That's hilarious. Okay. So I think we've covered that. I would imagine.
I mean, there'll be more.
There'll be more. And I think we're going to come back to this probably week after week with some updates. Yeah. But I hope if you are listening to this from outside, or even if you are local and you don't really know all the details, I hope this was somewhat helpful. We are not sure what's happening yet. And we are not sure where this is going either.
Right.
To be very clear, like, we are processing this for you in real time as best as we can. If you are using us as a way to process this kind of horrific situation or as a source of information and news, don't do that. Go get a newspaper. Please, read 51st or Martin Ostermuhl's Twitter or somebody like that who knows much more than we do. We're just two guys with microphones, and that's just how that works. But if you are listening and we're a good starting point, please, by all means, just continue to go and learn about this, because we don't really know yet. Right. Okay. You want to take a break?
Sure.
All right. Let's take a quick break. Then we'll come back with the third half of the show, which should be relatively short considering all the things that are going on. We're not talking about any of the big heavy stuff. So, it'll be fine. We're going to have fun. This is a fun show.
Fun.
Yeah. This is a fun show. It's going to be Tez's favorite stuff, econ nerd shit.
Yes.
It's going to get all excited. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Marketplace. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweet.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap. Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm going to say it real slow for you. Gay. Frogs. Won't you fight for your life? Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. I don't like a frog. Gay. Friggin' frogs. Frogs. Friggin' frog crap. Won't you fight the frogs? It's not funny. I'm going to say it real slow for you. Frogs. I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks. You're full of shit. Pumpkin possums. I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Oh, there's energy, and now we're done with Trump. You said he was the Messiah. You said he was invincible. I will not suffer your Q people after this. I knew what you were day one. I know what you are now. Witches and warlocks are full of shit. Pumpkin possums. I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why every goddamn thing out of your people's mouths doesn't come true. You said it was all over. You tells us stuff. You. Oh, God. Witches and warlocks, you're full of shit. Pumpkin popsums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Witches and warlocks, you're full of shit. Pumpkin popsums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Because every god thing.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
Oh, what's poppin', y'all? And as we like to do after every time we play that, if you are so inclined to do, please head over to the sandyhookpromise.org where you can go ahead and donate to the brave souls who have went through a terrible tragedy and are using that terrible tragedy, which is killing a bunch of kids in elementary school with a gun, to go ahead and try to enact some type of gun policy in this country. And again, you can go smash that donate button at sandyhookpromise.org.
And way to go, like Alex Jones, man. He's coming up in the show. We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
But the gay frogs, such a classic.
Frogs!
Gay frogs! Whack, 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 whack. That's my favorite part of that whole song is the whack, 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 whack. So, yeah. All right. Let's talk about funny business here, which is we're going to talk about economics, which is everybody's favorite dismal science. So the CPI, right? That's a consumer price index. We get these numbers, right? There's the PPI just came out, I think, this week.
Right.
And, what we're talking about is like tracking how the economy is doing.
Right.
And the consumer price index is, when people say inflation, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the CPI. There are various different versions of the CPI. There's the CPI, there's the core CPI, and there's the change CPI. These are all slightly different, but the thing that people mostly pay attention to in terms of the Fed and all of that is if the CPI, the consumer price index, is rising, they say inflation is rising, and therefore we need to pull money out of the system, which means to raise interest rates, to slow things down and take money out of the system, make it less easy to borrow. And if you see inflation is going the other direction, right? Then it's time to inject money into the economy, because you need smaller denominations to be able to spend the money is what that means. And so you would need to make money easier to get and lower the rates. People borrow more, they invest more, they grow more, that's all that stuff. Okay. So the CPI did come out and it's flat from last month, 2.7%. But that is not the thing that I want to talk about. I don't think that's the thing anybody is talking about. It's in that represents food and fuel prices. And food, we made a joke about this earlier, but food and fuel are often not good to include in the CPI because they're so volatile. Yeah, they fluctuate like the most, right? So you could have a time where core inflation is good, real flat, but like gas prices spike for some reason.
A war,
some
tanker taking over straight from Russia.
Yeah, or a hurricane in the Gulf.
Yeah, another one.
All of these kinds of things could happen. A pipeline getting hacked, like those things can happen. And when they do, right, fuel prices might spike. And so you might see the CPI would go like way up, but that's not really representative of the actual price of everything else. So you might want to take that out. And the same thing happens with food, right? There could be a big spike. There could be like a bird flu epidemic that causes eggs to go way up, or some sort of flood that causes corn prices to go crazy or whatever. So the core inflation is when you take away food and fuel from what you're measuring. And that number is up. It went from 2.9 to 3.1. That's a 0.2% increase. If you're not an econ nerd, that probably seems like, who would care? But that's something. It's not nothing. Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's something. And, we had been expecting to see this earlier, that that the core inflation is going up and that food and fuel are actually keeping the CPI down is pretty remarkable. It's usually the other way around.
Right.
So that tells you that the cost of everything else that you might buy, and including services, are rising. And a lot of that has to do with the tariffs. And a lot of that has to do, if it's not directly because it's tariffed, it's because of the uncertainty that the tariffs are causing. And it's causing weird economic behavior. Businesses are reluctant to invest or build new factories or any of that.
Which is uncertainty across the market.
And they're reluctant to hire. So this is all kind of, we just got the jobs numbers, they're low, and inflation is growing. That's backwards. Okay? In the normal world, if jobs are growing, right? You have more jobs, you often have inflation because wage pressure goes up. If you've got more jobs available, more people are working, they're going to demand higher wages. They've got more money, right? And then they've got more money to spend. Businesses raise their prices because they can afford to raise their prices. And now they've got all these workers that they got to pay all this extra money to. So and that's the virtuous cycle of growth in an economy.
Because the price is raised and then I want a higher wage, and then the price is raised more, and I want another higher wage. And we saw that going 2021 to 2023.
Yeah, and as long as the wages outpace the prices, then that's just called growth, and that's great. Everybody likes that.
But we want that at a 2% clip.
But we want it at a 2% clip. We don't want it any hotter than that, and we don't want it any cooler than that. But what we've got now, where jobs are dropping or flat and inflation is going up, that's what we call stagflation.
Yeah.
And that's bad because the Fed's tools for dealing with this are the interest rates. If there's too much growth, right, they can raise the interest rates and slow things down. They can take some money out of the economy. So if you see inflation going up, the thing to do is to raise the rates and slow it down.
Which they did.
Right. But if you see unemployment going up, you see jobs going down, the thing to do is lower the rates to cause a bit more growth. But now you've got these two things diverging. You've got jobs going down and you've got prices going up. Which thing do you select? Now, if there's anybody can figure it out, it's Tez's personal hero, Jay Powell.
He's got a few months.
But is he going to be able to do it if you've got somebody who's purposely trying to undermine everything you do?
No, I think there's a few things here, right? I mean, obviously tariffs are going to be playing a bigger and huge part in this going forward. I think I'm thinking more 10 years from now, how do you turn off these tariffs once they start? I mean, because when Congress will get this money, and will they want to give this money up? How do these tariffs ever? And granted,
the courts could rule that they're not legal.
Yeah, that's one way. That's one way there. But for the ones that end up being legal, right? If any of these are legal, I don't see this turning off. And then I just wonder, does this country go into, and what's propping? A lot of folks will ask, what's propping up the stock market then, right? Because the stock market's that it's investment in AI, right? That's the only thing. There's nothing. There's really nothing else. If you remove that, I think you're clearly all of this falls apart. I mean, that seems to be the only area in this country currently that has actual unique investment in people spending money on it. And I think that could also be at the detriment of actual jobs, because that's why we see folks being unemployed for longer, right? I mean,
and it's a different set of jobs too.
Yeah,
than what we're used to seeing. Yeah. We're used to seeing technology knock blue collar and production factory jobs offline, and now we're seeing that AI could really be knocking off service sector jobs.
Yeah, some white collar.
Yeah, which really, we don't have a remedy for that. We know how to train coal miners to do other important jobs. We don't know what to do with a bunch of out-of-work accountants. And that doesn't, our economy really isn't built to absorb that.
The only way is universal basic income. That's what it is. It's the only way.
Slow down there.
The only way. It's the only. It's literally the only way going.
All right.
forward.
So when I tell everybody to get a CB radio, you're like, "Oh, that's fear mongering and stuff." But Ted's talking about rewiring the entire capitalist system, and I'm supposed to just sit here and be like, "Yeah, that's cool."
I'm just saying, at a certain point, you're gonna have to pay people to stay at home if you want to keep people to buy things, and that's what it's gonna be. And maybe it's okay. Maybe that person learns to play guitar, and they go to the park and they play guitar for fucking an hour, and people go and sit around and listen to the person play the guitar. And that's what they do now. And they're more fulfilled people. Maybe that's the AI revolution.
That all sounds great, but that's not what we do in this country. Our money is green. You pinko European.
It can be green. You can
No.
It will. The money that they're going to give you is green, and you'll go out and use that money to do other things instead. Again, you go to take guitar lessons.
How am I supposed to make fun of the French for being lazy idiots if we're not working ourselves to the bone to get our green money to wave at them?
There might eventually need to be a change in the way we actually think in this country around this. And maybe we all go, maybe they pay us all to go help the climate.
It is my God-given right as an American not to change my way of doing things.
Well, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming soon.
I think the other thing really to be paying attention to with the numbers are what they are, right? But we got a real kind of shift going on, rewiring of like where the economy, how it works. Because to your point about the tariffs, like if they stick, if Congress gets addicted to this money, if other countries put reciprocal tariffs on us, and if the world economy kind of reroutes itself around the United States, we might really get stuck. And the stagflation thing might be kind of the least of our problems.
Yeah.
Because if we get cut out from the world economy, like we can't buy enough of our own corn. We can't buy enough of our own commodity products that we can produce. The things that we're good at are really only valuable if we can sell them to the rest of the world. You know, the things that America is good at making, the things that our resources are particularly useful for, our inland waterways, our giant amber waves of grain on the Great Plains, you know, our coastal access, all of these things are mostly built around our ability to produce things and sell them somewhere else and then buy different things that those countries are good at making. We're not really set up to be a good insular economy. And I think that the tariffs have not just the financial aspect, not just the fiscal aspect, not just the monetary policy aspect of this, not the inflationary aspect. I think that the real world economy aspect of these things is a thing to be watching. So just like kind of heads up on that. Like if the world, we talked about that on this show so many times. If the world learns to skip us, we're kind of double fucked, and we don't have a way around that.
It seems the world is going to try to ride this out. Every trade deal I've listened to that's went through seems to be like, all right, cool. Yeah, we're going to let you charge us 15, whatever percent, 20%. We're not going to do reciprocal. A trade deal takes years to get done anyways. If you look at the only one, I guess the only actual one would be the new NAFTA, right? That's that's the only one. There was never an actual one with China.
No. He never got any actual deals with anybody. And all these other things are just frameworks or tacos. Yeah. Speaking of that pay to play though aspect, let's talk about NVIDIA. So so basically Trump ran a shakedown. He goes to NVIDIA and to AMD. He also did this to them. These are big chip makers. What they do is they make the chips that are running the AI world. And if you'd have told me 20 years ago that graphics,
no way in hell, no way. Because you know why? I wouldn't have missed this boat, and I would have been rich.
Yeah, well, because when I hear NVIDIA, I think, oh yeah, you got to have like the high enough NVIDIA card to be able to play Diablo.
Yeah, exactly. What is it? I would say CrowdStrike. What was it? Counter-Strike is gonna work. It's gonna work because I need a new NVIDIA. Like, no way in hell you could have told me this. Like,
I'm not even sure how graphics cards or graphics card or the chips that are on the graphics cards are better at AI than like regular, 486 multiple chips or something. But somehow they are. I don't know enough about math to be good at that. But anyway, NVIDIA and AMD make a lot of the chips, and they are huge, right? And they need to be able to sell these chips all over the world because everybody wants to buy them. They're building up these massive AI data centers, server farms, and all this kind of stuff, sucking up all the water and making Tez cry. And these things need
And
these
laugh.
chips. And laugh. And there are reasons, legitimate reasons, that the U.S. government really doesn't want like some of these chips going to places like China, because the Chinese could do stuff with these chips that harms us, right? So you might want to put like a legitimate export.
Joe Biden went put a stop to that.
Yeah, Joe Biden was like, no, you're not getting any of these chips, right? And that's a legitimate what they call national security, right? Export controls. Those
And
are
guess who
export
started?
controls.
And guess who's the one who initiated this from the beginning? For folks to even think this way about China, this way, that starts from Donald Trump in his first term. No one was thinking this way about China until he approached it this way. And yeah, and Joe, I think what it's the tariffs or what some of the chip controls that he put in, Joe Biden was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense actually. And now it's Donald Trump who's flipping on it.
He's flipping on it because there's a price, right?
Yeah, there's always a price.
So he basically says, hey, look, I didn't really worry about those export controls. There's no risk of the Chinese getting NVIDIA chips as long as they pay me. So he shakes him down. He goes, you want to sell to China? 15%. Or he said 20%. And they're like, how about 15? He goes, deal. And that was it. So they're paying to be able to export these chips. Now, there is a big problem here, is that the U.S. Constitution expressly prohibits export taxes. The United States government cannot charge a tax on any U.S. producer of any kind in order to be able to sell things out of the country, because they anticipated this potential problem, right? Is that the government could want to shake somebody down, and God bless Hamilton and these guys for thinking this through, but that was one of the things that they thought of, and they did think this through, and they banned it. And now Trump's like, I don't care about the Constitution, 15%. So, and NVIDIA is willing to pay that, right? Because they're making money hand over fist. This is cost of doing business. It's like 15% haircut, no problem. We're making 50% profits on everything. Let's go, guys. So now who's next, right? Does he go after Apple? Does he go after, who else does he shake down?
Well, Apple's already, they're already safe because they said,
a trinket.
Well, yeah, the first time they go to China, Apple said, well, we'll move all the shit to India to avoid it. And then India pissed them off. He's like, oh, shit, well, you got to get excluded. And yeah, these guys, it's,
Apple did it.
It's one of those things where it's, as a CEO, when Joe Biden was in office, they moved differently, right? It was a completely different move on how they. Now Donald Trump is in office, and now they'll move differently, and they're gonna go like it doesn't matter. Like let's just say Mondani wins the friggin' president. Well, he can't win that, but let's say a style of that style wins the presidency. These companies will flip again, and they're gonna continue to flip back and forth to whatever's gonna protect their business. And
that's their job. Right. Let's not kid ourselves. Corporations, as Mitt Romney said, are people, and that's their job.
I listened to. Wasn't there a whole roundtable? I forgot the group, right, where they told us that they figured it out. There's a different way to go about this. That shareholder price isn't the only thing. That there are other things. Like they just told me that 3 years ago.
Get the fuck out of here.
What happened to ESG?
Yeah, right. Oh, that died with DEI.
Oh, all the acronyms are dead.
What the fuck? Yeah, no, nobody cares about that. Speaking of which, taco. Here's an acronym everybody loves. All right, so the taco trade, if you bet on it, you got it right. Of course you did, because Trump always
with China. Especially with China.
Especially with China, right? You'll notice that the secondary tariffs or sanctions that he's trying to put for buying Russian oil. He went after India. He didn't go after China. China buys almost twice as much oil from Russia as India does. So, the China thing, like Trump loves to fight with China and like blame them for everything, but he's never actually willing to like put the screws to them, because we're talking about the two biggest economies in the world. The United States needs China. China needs the United States. This is a mutually assured economic destruction.
Yeah, and no one wants that. And the rest of the world is looking like, please, everybody, chill out.
Yeah, right. So there's this great phrase. It's an African phrase. It says that when two elephants are fighting, the grass will suffer. And that would be the case, right? If the United States and China got into an actual trade war, then everybody would suffer. And nobody wants that. So at least of which Trump. So like after threatening China with like, okay, this is your doomsday cutoff, right? He extended it again, another 90 days. So now he's kicked this down into like November or something like that. They've been meeting. There's been some meetings between American negotiators and the Chinese negotiators in all kinds of fancy places like Geneva, Stockholm, and London. Must be nice to be a negotiator. You got to go to like
great places.
You can't have a Zoom meeting. You have to go.
No, you have
some
to have
fancy fucking hotel in some fancy fucking city and have caviar. That's the only way to negotiate
on your government's dime.
How else could we figure out a trade deal if we're not getting foot rubs and going on expensive fishing trips? Whatever. You want to be a trade negotiator? I'd be a great trade negotiator.
Yeah. Like more.
Yeah. Give me all the shit I want. And then they're gonna be like, no. And I'll be like, all right, tell you what, why don't we go meet in Stockholm? And they'll be like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. Then 3 days of me palling around with the Chinese version of me and be like, did you accomplish anything? No, but we think the next meeting that we need to have should be in Tahiti. That's gonna get us there. And and they're just playing this game, man.
It's a government grift on both sides. It's just all it is.
The negotiators are just out here racking up airline miles.
Exactly.
And they're never going to reach a deal as long as now. If you want them to reach a deal, you send them to some place like Rochester, New York, and say you can't leave until you figure this shit out. And they'll have a deal in an instant.
Buffalo.
No, don't slander Buffalo. Buffalo's a nice place. I like it.
I'm just saying that they're not going to like it there.
No, they're not going to like it there. Pick some place that they're going to hate, right? Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. You're going to Coeur d'Alene until you figure this shit out. But it's fucking cold and in the mountains. Yeah, you goddamn right it is. Figure it out or you're never leaving the mountains.
Right.
Okay. Let's move on to other cold places where people are going to meet. So let's talk about Alaska. We just got to get this out because it's happening tomorrow. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. Trump, on Sunday, said, I'm going to meet with Putin on Friday?
No, they alluded to it a couple days prior. They alluded to it.
But they basically threw this
Sunday is, Sunday is it. Because on Monday, he was like, that's why he was frustrated with in the D.C. meeting. Like, I got to meet with Putin. And you know what? I got to look at my streets.
Yeah, right. It's like I got to go to Russia and talk to this guy. It's like, you're going to Alaska, you fucking moron. You're not going to Russia. He's coming here.
For now.
Right. It might be Russia soon. So they're going to meet in Anchorage, Alaska, which is not the capital of Alaska. Juneau's the capital of Alaska, in case anybody forgets that. Anchorage is the largest city in Alaska. I think it's up to 17 people now. So it's a very exciting.
17,000.
Okay. Sure. In my elementary school, they're going to meet there. It's not really clear what they're going to.
No one knows what's happening right now.
The only thing Europeans
they tried to get out in front of this.
Yeah, so the Europeans called an emergency Zoom meeting to all get together. Zelensky had to go to Berlin to hang out with Merz to get on the phone with Trump, and they all get on the phone. They're like, "Hey, when you go talk to Putin, remember." You can't give away anything from Ukraine. You don't own Ukraine. And he was like, what? I already
thought what was the mineral deal for?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's like I bought Ukraine. I thought I bought it when I bought that building, and they're like, no, you can't do that. And also they're like, hey man, we want to buy all the stuff from you. If you keep supplying Ukraine through the NATO countries, you get to make money. And
Right.
Trump loves money. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about the money. Right. So, like, money is good, right? Don't you want money? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, okay, good. So when you go talk to Vladdy, don't end the war by giving him chunks of Ukraine. Remember, if you fight and Ukraine fights, you get money, right? Money. And he's like, yeah, money.
What about the
and they're like,
Donbass?
all right, so what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to give him the Donbass. And they're like, no, you fucking moron. Let's start over. And they jingle the money. And they're like, you like the money? He's like, yeah, I like the money.
You can't give up the Donbass.
Don't give up Donbass and you get money. Give up Donbass and I get money. No. So, like, they tried. I don't know what's going to happen. They're having a meeting where they're going to do another one of these things where there's going to be no note takers, just the translators in the room. And, you know, we had this before when he gave him that soccer ball and he said that he loved.
What if he's a wild card? What if he comes out of this? And drops sanctions? Like, what if, like, again, I don't know, because again, I don't know what's about to happen here. Everything leading up to this definitely seems like, I mean, he could easily give away all of Ukraine's land.
He's a nutball, though, so he can just he could do anything, right? He could lose his cool. He could feel slighted. He could, you know, he's a crazy old man. He's definitely got the old timers.
Could he finally be done with Putin, though? That's the thing. Could I don't know.
Well, or the other thing is they're going to be in there one-on-one, and Putin's going to be like, all right, you know, you had enough fun, but the P-tape is in my hand. So, like, fucking, you know, I don't know. But also, Putin speaks English. Like, people, I don't know why they think that he doesn't. He speaks English.
Yeah.
So you can't say anything without him knowing what you're saying. He can do that because you don't speak Russian. But I don't know. I have no expectations here. We are along for the ride on this, and it could go very bad very quickly. Or it could go fine, but like
I don't know what go fine looks like, though.
Well, yeah, I don't know either. I mean, look, there's no chance that Trump says anything to Putin that convinces him to stop the war and give back the chunks of Ukraine that he's currently occupying, because he sees no reason to do that. Even if Trump threatens to nuke him, Putin's going to be like, "Go ahead and do it." Like.
I've just been reading about nuclear, like, because obviously we came up on the anniversary a few weeks ago, and Christ, I was the Atlantic did a whole.
It's horrific.
It's just the power that the president has over the nuclear weapons, it shouldn't be that. But I also kind of get we got 7 minutes to figure out what the hell's about to happen. Like, you got 7 minutes to crazy. Oh my God.
So, like, that's the thing is what could he possibly say that would change Putin's mind? The answer is nothing. So Putin has nothing to lose here. He's just going to see what he can get out of Trump. Also,
he's already got it. He got the meeting. He
got what he wanted. And he's getting around all these. He's an indicted war criminal. But he's traveling to the United States somehow safely without getting pinched. The other thing is that, like, Trump can't actually give away anything in Ukraine. Like, the maximum give he can do to the Russians is he can say, all right, I'm going to cut off everything going to Ukraine and let you run over them. But the Europeans are not going to let that happen.
And he hasn't been doing that. He's done the opposite the last few weeks. Like,
yeah. So I don't know. And MTG's worried about civilian casualties in Gaza. Things are going crazy right now.
Very weird.
It's a strange place. It turns out maybe enough carnage gets to these people. You know, it's not enough if, like, it's a few hundred people dead, but if it's tens of thousands, they're like, oh, that's not great. I don't know. But my expectations are not good.
I mean, one way or another, it'll be, the song that'll be sung will be Crimea River.
Ha! There's this whole poem about the Charge of the Light Brigade and all that stuff, right?
There isn't that? Oh, wow.
It's about the Crimean War when England was fighting in Crimea. Mine was not to do or die, or not the reason why it is just to do or die. That's the cried the charging light brigade. That's the line.
Very British.
I know poems or something. All right. Fascism on display. So Trump is taking over the Smithsonian, apparently. They're going to do a sweeping review of all of the things in the Smithsonian. And they're going to have their truth and sanity restoration in there. So they're going to basically they sent this letter to Lonnie Bunch that said, like, we're going to whitewash your museums. And Director Bunch was like, or Secretary Bunch is like, no. We have, we're chartered by Congress. We're not executive branch. You don't have the authority to do this. And, we don't care. You're not going to stop us. We have a thing. He said, let's see. The Smithsonian's work is grounded in a deep commitment to scholarly excellence, rigorous research, and the accurate factual presentation of history, as Smithsonian spokesperson said. We are reviewing the letter from the White House and this commitment with this commitment in mind, and will continue to collaborate constructively with the White House, Congress, and our governing board of regents. They tried to replace some of the board earlier and lost in court on that. So I don't know. I think this is if you somehow all the other things we've talked about in the last 2 hours have not convinced you that this is a fascist regime, trying to literally rewrite the history. Come on, guys. What are we doing here?
We federal troops inside the museums, and so
right. Make sure that you don't look at that Rosa Parks exhibit. I thought it was sort of interesting that the first unhoused people that they went after were the ones over there near the African American History Museum.
Yeah,
right between African American history and the Holocaust Museum is where they stationed the first set of troops. I was like, oh, there's a little symbolism there.
There you go. Yeah, first ones to the camps.
That's right. Why are these the two museums that are closed first? An American Indian. Wait a minute.
Wait, hold on.
And why is that caveman riding on that dinosaur all of a sudden? Something's not right.
Geico.
All right, this one's called We Still Have a Chance.
We do?
All right, so we mentioned Alex Jones, right, when we played his thing, and we have been trying. We were hoping that maybe we were going to get to buy InfoWars, or at least Turbo Force. We want the Turbo Force, because it's 5 different kinds of caffeine.
That's what's probably turning the frogs gay.
Yeah, this stuff is probably great for the frogs. Why are energy drinks colors?
I mean, that's
the only reason an energy drink is a color is because they expect you to mix it with alcohol. Here's my theory.
That's actually a good point. Yeah.
Nobody on God's green earth has ever poured an energy drink out of the can and
no, you don't. Yeah, only drink.
They drink them straight out of the can. So
you don't want to see
not matter what color this is, but for whatever reason, this is pink.
There's a little Red Bull and vodka.
Exactly. They're adding Red 40 and Blue Number 1.
Oh, not for long. Not when JFK Jr. gets to them.
Yeah, okay, but those things aren't free. So
JFK Jr.
RFK Jr. Yeah, JFK Jr.'s in Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me.
Waiting for QAnon. Somewhere somebody's making a business case, and they're like, "Hey, Ted, should we add the Red 40? It's costing us, X number of thousands of dollars." And he's like, "Yeah, we should." And they go, "But nobody sees this. They wouldn't know if it's red or not." And he goes, "Yeah, they are, because they're mixing it in their vodka." And you make a great case, sir. That's why you're the CEO of Energy Drinks Unanimous or whatever. Yeah. Okay, so Alex Jones has Turbo Force for now, but he's bankrupt, and the courts ruled that he has to give up his stuff to the Sandy Hook families, and they cut a deal with the Onion to basically buy it, and then the courts were like, no, that deal is not good. There's technical hangups here. So that meant we were like, oh, this is an opportunity. All right, we can swoop in, and buy Turbo Force. The state judge in Texas Wednesday ordered InfoWars assets to be turned over to a newly appointed state receiver. Sounds good so far. who will sell them to pay the families of the Connecticut children killed in Sandy Hook. They won a $1.3 billion defamation case against Jones after he spread a bunch of bogus conspiracies about, the shooting never happening and whatever. Then his listeners harassed all the actual families. The move paves the way for the receiver or the sheriffs to start the process of seizing cash and property owned by InfoWars. Within days, the families that, then it gets sold. So like, oh, I'm so ready. Like, I guess we're going to Texas to buy some Turbo Force. But the family said that they're pleased that the court has placed InfoWars into receivership and, that there's some accountability. Judge Maya Guerra Gamble's order in Travis County, Texas, District Court appointing a receiver may herald a quick end to Jones's long run under the InfoWars brand. Most of the Sandy Hook family still want the InfoWars name and property sold to The Onion, which vowed to turn InfoWars into a parody of itself. Oh my God, damn
please.
It. You sure you don't want to give ChipChat just a little piece? Like, we don't need a lot. Just give us the Turbo Force.
That's all we need.
Last December, federal bankruptcy court in Texas stopped a sale to The Onion, saying that the bankruptcy auction process was flawed. So Jones was like, woo, I'm free for a little bit. But the newly appointed receiver has the power to collect all accounts receivable, change the locks on all the premises at which any property is situated, including, I guess, his house, access all storage facilities, safe deposit boxes, and real property, and exercise control over any website of Jones according to the order. The order adds that any sheriff, constable, or officer of the peace shall assist the receiver in carrying out his duties and exercising his power under the orders. Now that there's a receiver in place, Alex Jones is no longer going to control InfoWars. It's time to shut it down, said one of the lawyers. But looks like maybe The Onion's still going to get it. That
sounds like it.
It sounds like it. But Texas receiver guy, what's the guy's name? Gregory Milligan. Look, we'll let you come on the show and say anything you want. You can have a 3 hour. Brian will do a short show. We'll let him have 3 hours, and he can say anything he wants on air to all of our tens of listeners. And in exchange for just a change, we just want to buy it. We don't even want you to give us stuff. We just want to buy. We just want the Turbo Force. You can give the rest. You can sell the rest. We just want to buy Turbo Force.
Sell it all.
Turbo Force.
Turn the frog gay.
It turns the frogs gay. Whew. All right, we've come to the end of the show. We did get a short one.
We did get a short one, a shorter one.
Short one. All right, so we want to say thanks to our current guests, the National Guard, PA, FBI, Secret Service, the Girl Scouts, all the federal agencies. They're our current guests. Please go home. Join us next week when our special guest will be Big Ball. Just the one.
Just Big Ball.
Just one Big Ball. Well, he got the other one crushed by a 15-year-old girl. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, we assume, although we don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And before I give the thanks to our family here at Beltway Radio, shout out to our former home and soon-to-be future home again. RIP Radio is bringing ChipChat back. We are resurrecting.
Look at that.
Yeah, Saturday, August 23rd.
I love that our show that happens 12 hours prior, or no, well, more than that, but
yeah,
it happens at 9:30 p.m. is going to be in the morning because we're not.
I chose that on purpose. We're like, it's just easier that way. We can say it's 9:30,
but it's not a zany morning show. For Saturday, it's a very late night Thursday show that's going to be broadcast.
It's a great alternative to the cartoons your kids are trying to watch. So if your kids are trying to watch SpongeBob, tell them, no, we're watching ChipChat. But, or you can tape it and then watch after the soccer games. It's cool. Or put it on while you're watching soccer, right? You can listen to us, watch soccer. It's
There's
cool.
many options.
Yeah. Also, Jack Grealish. Hooray.
Yeah.
I mean, and Dewsbury Hall also, So, like, hey, next week I could be a much happier Chip. You never know. There's a possibility.
Possible.
Right?
Possible.
Yeah, it's also possible it goes the other way. All right. And thanks as always to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as Netanyahu's morning commute. All right. Where can everybody get you on the socials there, Tez?
You can find me at DC Cortez on Blue Sky.
All right, you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. And you can, of course, find me on Blue Sky at Chef Chip. You can also catch a special episode of Ish Talk DMV News. I was on their show yesterday, or the taping of it anyway, so check them out on Instagram, Ish Talk. You just search that and you'll find it. And you can, of course, catch us every Thursday night here on Beltway Radio and Beyond at 9:30 at night, and then again at 9:30 in the morning on Saturday on Rip Radio Network. I'm Chip. That's Tez. Brian's in the back somewhere. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and Beyond.
Street big balls.
Yes.